The Korean War, 1950. Stage 1. North Korea is victorious. North Korea, under the leadership of Kim Il-sung, in July 1950 invaded South, defeating Syngman Rhee and the South Korean army. In fact, they took almost all of South Korea, except for this little area here called the Pusan Pocket. South Korea went all the way to the United Nations and said for help. Help me, help me, help me. They expected the Soviets and Russia to block any help that the UN may give. But the Soviets were boycotting the United Nations because the United Nations was not allowing entry to Communist China. So the United Nations, under the leadership of America, said that the North Korea was the aggressor. Stage 2, the INKPA are driven back. Immediately, 16 nations, including the United States of America, went to Korea. In fact, ultimately 32 countries went to help. The Americans, led by General Douglas MacArthur, a Second World War military hero, invaded at Incheon. At Incheon, they managed to get into Korea and dominate the whole area, forcing back the North Koreans, till eventually the Southern Koreans had over huge amounts of chunks of Korea and were advancing towards the Chinese border. North Korean resistance appears to have collapsed. Stage 3. China gets involved. Communist China were greatly concerned by the advancing American troops. It warned the United Nations if they go any closer to the Yalu River, they would take action. Douglas MacArthur, though, was not concerned. He knew that America had nuclear bombs and was really keen to use them against the Chinese forces. In fact, he wanted to take China himself. The Chinese, therefore, sent in 200,000 volunteers in the Chinese army. They invaded South, forcing the United Nations troops below the 38th parallel. Yeah, they got that far. Stage 4, Stalemate. The Americans were yet determined to capture Korea. They sent in many more men and pushed the Chinese army back above the 38th parallel. However, in April 1951, General Douglas MacArthur was fired by Truman, and in his place, General Matthew Ridgway was put in. The rest of the war, though, was spent in stalemates, neither side shifting, both sides just having to tolerate and put men and troops in, just maintaining their position, looking something like this. Finally, both sides agreed a ceasefire in 1953. This has been an Adams low-budget production.